No, we feel that this is an impending threat to New York. Minnesota has already received a letter that identifies there will be a suspension of funds that cover essential programs, including child care. And I have to ask the question, why is there such a frontal assault on children in this nation from this administration? Just back in November, they stopped feeding our kids. Now they won't vaccinate our kids. They're not allowing their parents to have their health care premiums covered without going up dramatically to make sure that our kids are raised safely and healthy. And now they don't give a damn about child care for kids. So this is a fight we're going to have to take on if we get that notification. It's vindictive. I believe that we'll be successful in court. We'll be having a litigation strategy, and we'll fight this with every fiber of our being, because our kids should not be political pawns in a fight that Donald Trump seems to have with blue state governors.
Oh, thank you. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Mr. Mayor and also Governor Hochul, a question about the Department of Community Safety. Mr. Mayor, can you tell us a little bit about what are the next steps in terms of setting this up? And Governor Hochul, since you talked about reducing subway crime and shouted this out, do you have any concerns at all about replacing any of the work that police are currently doing in subways with social workers?
So this is work that is ongoing within our administration. The focus is on building this Department of Community Safety. And to be very clear, it is about supplementing as opposed to supplanting the work that the NYPD does. What we are seeing right now is that there are far too many New Yorkers who are, whether experiencing the homelessness crisis or the mental health crisis, who are not being connected to the services that they need. And this is an opportunity for us to build upon the incredible work that the NYPD has done, as we've just spoken about, and start to deliver for those very New Yorkers.
No, just on that question. No, we have successfully worked to deal with the homelessness crisis in our subways. There's over 1,000 individuals who've been long-term homeless. Literally, this was the only world they knew. And they're now in supportive housing because of a scout teams that we help fund and other initiatives where we send in mental health professionals with law enforcement to back them, but it's also to develop relationships with them. So I feel confident that we're going to continue funding the overtime for NYPD in the subways. I'll continue that path. We have our MTA police, we have our transit police, and so I feel confident that nothing will change, and the mayor's committed to ensuring the safety of all on the subways. So I don't believe that's going to have a negative effect at all.
Mr. Mayor, just to follow up on that, your Community Safety Division, how will that work in conjunction? How do you coordinate that with the police department activity? Would you necessarily put somebody from the police department in charge of it to work with them together, or would it fall under the police department? What's the function? How would it function within the police?
So there would be coordination between the NYPD and the Department of Community Safety, as there would be as part of a whole of government approach. The Department of Community Safety would report through the first deputy mayor. This will be work that will be critical in tackling so many of the different issues we see in our city. Right? We've spoken about the mental health crisis. We've spoken about homelessness. Part of this is also tackling the silos that have existed within city government. We have a number of different initiatives, a number of different departments that are tasked with doing very similar things, but they're operating in isolation. So even when we are thinking about the incredible work that is being done on tackling gun violence, the importance of actually cohering the crisis management system, for example, within a larger framework that is tackling these kinds of issues, that's going to be critical, and that is something that we are looking forward to.
So this department then would coordinate with other agencies in addition to NYPD?
Yes.
All right, Henry, last one.
Hi there. Governor, you mentioned protecting houses of worship. This in some way would kind of backtrack on an executive order that Mayor Mamdani just pulled back upon taking office. So can you talk about working through that policy? Please go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, we'll vote through it.
Yeah.
Just to be very clear, the executive order that we issued was a direction to the police commissioner and the law department to review a number of the very things that they had been tasked with prior, and then to present that review to myself.
Okay. And Governor, if you could talk a little bit about that forthcoming policy, and more broadly, since you two are standing together in your first joint press conference as elected, pretty much statewide, citywide leaders, how do you work through difference? Just bring me behind the opinions a little bit about if you believe A, he believes B. How do you work through that?
Well, first of all, in my State of the State address, I'll be announcing safety zones around houses of worship where people can go freely to go to a safe place without threats of violence or protest. So we'll be announcing that very shortly to protect individuals. I get along with most people. The mayor's a nice guy, too. And I think what you talk about is what the people of the city of New York want. When I became governor, there was a long legacy of conflict, turf battles, big egos that were fighting each other, right? Nonstop. It was a constant clash. And I don't think anybody felt safer or better about life as a New York City resident when they saw two leaders in conflict. I took that lesson to my last 4 years, and I worked with Bill de Blasio successfully for a few months. I worked with Eric Adams, and I'm looking forward to working with Mayor Mamdani, because that's who I am. I don't need to have a public fight just for my ego's satisfaction. I believe we can work out issues as we have been. Even before the election, our teams have been talking nonstop. They're embedded as we talk about the priorities of the city and our priorities and how we blend them together heading into our next budget and in our State of the State. So I feel very confident that New Yorkers will not get the drama that perhaps is only enjoyed by the press, but it's not going to be there because we have work to do. We have a city and a state that are counting on us to actually lead and not be actors in a larger political theater.
And I will just add one thing to what the governor said, which is that I remember when the governor became the governor of our state, one of the first acts that she took was to actually get the money out of ERAP and into New Yorkers' households across the state. And to me, it was an example of what it can look like when the focus is on the work, the focus is on the results, the focus is not instead on continuing that legacy of conflict between City Hall and Albany.
Thank you. I'll see you later.
Governor, have you spoken with the mayor about the Dan Goldman race? You're endorsing different people.
Big turnout. All right, good morning, everyone. 2025 was a historic year for the NYPD and for the city of New York. Shooting incidents and shooting victims fell to their lowest levels in recorded history. The subway system had its safest year outside the pandemic era since 2009. Transit robberies fell to their lowest point ever, even when you include the pandemic era, and retail theft was down a whopping 14%. Together, these numbers describe an agency that is firing on all cylinders, driven by the extraordinary work of the men and women of the NYPD. I want to be clear. These are not incremental gains. They are historic outcomes. Before I get into the data, I want to thank Governor Hochul for being here with us today. Her presence is a symbol of the true partner that she has been to this department, committed to the mission, supportive of the cops, and focused on the results. When federal funding for our counterterrorism programs came under threat, she fought to protect it. She invested in public safety across the city, and those investments have helped produce so many of the 2025 results that we will cover today. I also want to thank Mayor Mamdani, to whom I report directly, and with whom I am developing a close and productive working relationship. I look forward to working with him to continue to drive down crime in 2026. Now let's get into the 2025 crime numbers, starting with shootings. In 2025, New York City recorded 688 shooting incidents, the lowest number in the city's history. That didn't just break the previous record set in 2018, it shattered it, with 66 fewer shootings than that benchmark year. Compared to 2024, shooting incidents fell by 216 citywide. That is a 24% reduction. They fell 36% in the fourth quarter of 2025, and in the month of December, shootings fell 43% with just 35 shooting incidents citywide. That is the lowest number of shootings ever in any month of the year, beating the previous record of 36 shooting incidents set in February of 2018. We see the headlines and we hear the pundits talk about crime being out of control in our city. These numbers tell a very different story. To put all of this into perspective, in 2025, we halved Chicago's more than 1,400 shooting incidents, despite having roughly 3 times the population. And we have Philadelphia's shooting total as well, despite having more than 5 times the population. This underscores just how far New York City has pushed gun violence down at a scale unlike any other city in the country. And it puts this moment into historical context. For decades, people have pointed to the early 1990s as the moment New York City turned the corner on gun violence, years that have been studied and written about. What is striking is that the drop in shootings from 2024 to 2025 was of a similar magnitude. Given all of this, it should come as no surprise that the number of people shot in New York City also fell to historic lows in 2025, with 856 shooting victims citywide. That is 41 fewer people shot than the previous record year of 2018. Compared to 2024, shooting victims declined by 247 citywide, a 22% reduction. That progress accelerated at the end of the year. In the fourth quarter, shooting victims fell by more than 34%, with December posting the lowest victim totals ever recorded for that month. And compared to 2021, 1,021 fewer people were shot in New York City in 2025. Those historic reductions in shooting incidents and victims weren't confined to a single part of the city. They were reflected across all 5 boroughs. Manhattan saw the steepest decline in shootings in 2025, down 38% year over year. The Bronx, Queens, and Staten Island each saw drops of roughly 25% or more. Brooklyn also saw a significant decline, with shootings down 15% below the previous benchmark set in 2024. Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island each had the lowest number of shooting incidents for any year in recorded history. Now let's get into the full crime picture. Major crime in 2025 was down 3% citywide, with reductions in all 5 boroughs, including a nearly 4% decline in public housing. Can someone just get me a glass of water? All good, thank you. All good, thank you. Oops. Sorry, I had something in my throat. Thank you.